Hello, today I'd like to share with you what's happening in Sheboygan County and specifically Sheboygan Falls. This was a presentation delivered at the May 2019 Developers Tour in Sheboygan Falls, which was made possible by a partnership between the Sheboygan Falls Chamber of Main Street, the City of Sheboygan Falls, and the Sheboygan County Economic Development Corporation. Today, I'm going to share a little bit about what's happening in the broader Sheboygan County area and then specifically start to narrow it in and what it means for the development of the city of Sheboygan Falls. So first, some definitions. Sheboygan Falls, or Falls as I will often call it, is the Sheboygan MSA, which is Sheboygan County. The city itself is just under 8,000 residents. It is within the larger Sheboygan metro area, which I consider part of Sheboygan Falls, Kohler, Sheboygan, Town of Wilson, which is basically more or less one giant city. That area has a population of about 70,000. The county, or MSA, those two terms are synonymous, has a population about 115,000. And because we know that where people shop and where they go and where they travel really has very little to do with administrative borders, we have a very good idea where a retail trade area is, which ironically is also around 115,000 people. It matches up with the county borders fairly well. Sheboygan County has got numerous headlines. Here are just some great examples, but one of the things that we always look at is how optimistic a business community is. And the main reason for that is businesses don't invest in communities that they don't think tomorrow is going to be better than today. 5 years from now is going to be better than tomorrow. And optimism we view as one of the most primary looks at how well we are doing. And the Wisconsin Manufacturing and Commerce released a study that basically asked companies, how do you feel about your local economy? How optimistic are you? And what they found is that about 45% of, this was about a year or two ago, 45% of the business community thought that their local economy was going to do better than it is today. In Sheboygan County, that number was about 89%. We are about twice as optimistic as the rest of the state of Wisconsin, which I think is really great. And in addition, the county has also been named a top place for millennials to move to, a top place for older Americans to move to. We've got numerous biking and other recreational amenity notoriety. And I think that just has to go back to the simple fact, when you look at all these studies and what they looked at, we have a very strong job market, we have a very low unemployment rate, we have a very affordable cost of living, and we have a very low crime rate. And so all those factors are playing into why we keep making all these top 10 lists for one of the best communities in the United States, and often it's the whole county that's making the list. Let's take a look at economic growth and what's been happening around the area. First off, on a high level, Sheboygan County has done extremely well. Our unemployment rate as of February 2019 was 2.5%. That is the second lowest in the state of Wisconsin. But even more impressively, when we look at how fast our labor force has been growing, how fast our employment's been growing, even when we look at gross domestic product growth, what we find again and again and again over the last couple of years is that Sheboygan County is either one or two on those lists, which basically means that Sheboygan County over the last few years has been the fastest growing county MSA in the state of Wisconsin. Now, on top of all this, we are still showing over 3,400 jobs on someplacebetter.org, our official kind of recruitment website to bring people to the area, which means that we still have an extremely healthy job market. Let's take a look at what's been causing that growth. The first one that we're often asked about is Acuity Insurance. Acuity Insurance just wrapped up a major expansion, a total investment of about $130 million. They're continually adding scores of employees every year. We expect that trend to continue. They have just been a phenomenal partner in kind of a great visual key on what's been happening in the county. We are also going to be seeing a new FedEx freight center. Now, FedEx has a couple different divisions. The one that is moving into the county is the one that basically does pallets and shipment. And in this day of internet sales and more industrial to consumer shipping, we think this is a tremendous asset to have in our backyard. We're looking at another 40 jobs. It's located in Sheboygan's Business Park. Aurora is getting ever closer to its new hospital. It's almost at the finish line. Sheboygan County is looking at a new $324 million hospital. We don't expect it to be open for a couple more years, but again, it shows that there is significant major investment happening in our area. Not to be outdone, Prevea, the other major medical supplier, is actually getting near to wrap up its 60,000 plus square foot addition, which if you drive down in our medical corridor, you will see that building being built right now. And tourism is another significant growing area for Sheboygan County. One of the biggest attractions that's being built right now is about a $40 million art preserve. This is an extension of the John Michael Kohler Art Center. They'll be restoring art and displaying it, and it's going to be, they primarily focus on folk art. Again, it's going to be a very unique, one-of-a-kind facility, and it's being built here just 2 miles down the road from Sheboygan Falls. Kohler is also looking at building another top golf course. Now this one is in some legal challenges right now. However, we've been told that the company is fairly optimistic about its chances of getting this approved. If it is approved, it will become the 6th top 100 public golf course in Sheboygan County alone. The other one's operated by Kohler Company, and the other one is the Bull located in Sheboygan Falls. Hotels are being announced. We have 2 of them that we expect. One is already broken ground and under construction right off the interstate. The other one we expect to break ground here soon. This would bring both a Marriott and a Hampton flag into the marketplace. Now what's absolutely amazing is we have some of the gorgeous beaches on Lake Michigan on one side of the county, and on the other side of the county we have the rolling kettle moraine forests. People in Sheboygan Falls in this Sheboygan County, we literally live in a middle of a resort. The food industry has been particularly strong in the county, and this goes all the way from farm to table. There's a new agronomy plant that just opened last year. This is one of the companies that took advantage of the new rail line that was rebuilt between Plymouth and Kohler. This agronomy plant brought in another 20 jobs into the community. Cold storage. The cheese industry here has done an absolute phenomenal job. And as a result, a necessary component of that in the logistics supply chain is simply cold storage to age the cheese. This area in the last 3 or 4 years has probably added darn near 750,000 square feet of refrigerated storage in the county, a true testimony to how strong that industry has been. And the most recent example of a physical expansion of one of the major cheese companies was Masters Gallery in Utsburg, opening up a new plant in the last year. And so we just foresee that industry continuing to provide jobs and stability in this area. Specifically within the 53085 zip code, which is Sheboygan Falls, 2 other very notable expansions. The first one was completed probably a little bit over a year ago, and this is Johnsonville's new headquarters. It is beyond a gorgeous facility. This is typical of what we're starting to see. We're seeing architecture become more and more important as people are trying to attract employees. And this is just an absolutely significant investment in the area by a family-owned, multi-generational family-owned company. We also saw actually a ribbon cutting of Millport Sigma's expansion. Millport is actually a chemical company located in the town of Wilson. Foxconn grabbed all the headlines a couple years ago on their major expansion, but this new plant was actually the 3rd largest economic development project in the state of Wisconsin when it was announced. $64 million plant, again, bringing a lot more jobs into our community. We couldn't be more excited to have Millport Sigma continuing to invest in their Sheboygan Falls facility. Talent. As everyone's heard, that the battle for workforce is perhaps where communities will set themselves apart in terms of how good they're going to be or how attractive they can be, and Sheboygan County is really leading on a lot of fronts. The first one is our collaboration between essentially our K-12 system and major employers, I think is truly off the charts in terms of the number of schools involved and the depth and breadth of those conversations, and quite frankly, the actions that have come out of there. So I know no stronger testimony than this. Plymouth High School, located just a few miles from Falls, is the only public high school in the nation with a high-speed packaging machine. Sheboygan Falls High School is the only public high school in the nation with a plastic injection molding machine. Now, if you know anything about those two communities' economies, Plymouth is really the center of cheese, hence a high-speed packaging machine, and Sheboygan Falls is home to one of the largest plastic injection molders in the country, Bemis Manufacturing, and they cooperated to the point where they have a plastic injection molding machine in their high schools teaching them. This is, again, I don't know of a stronger testimony to how communities understand they're in a symbiotic relationship between employers and their school district. And if one thrives, the other one can thrive. They have to work together. Coordinating all the high schools and probably about 80 different companies has been Inspire Sheboygan County. Inspire Sheboygan County is really the missing piece in terms of having companies communicate directly with students. So in the past, co-ops or internships were kind of, someone needed to know, the shop teacher needed to know someone in a company to kind of make it happen, and they were very obscure. This has really brought it to the surface and formalized the process. All of our public high schools in Sheboygan County belong to this. Every student has access to the system, and basically students can request job shadows, internships, co-ops, in the medical field, in accounting, on a plant floor. It doesn't matter. The point is students in Sheboygan County can test drive careers. They can learn about careers before they commit either to a very expensive four-year college education or to learn that an employer is willing to help send them on their education if they work for them after high school. So this is a truly, it's becoming more and more popular, but Sheboygan County really has been on the vanguard of this for a number of years. The other one is not just our high schools, even our higher education systems are responding and changing the way that they do things to better connect students to opportunities. And probably the best example in Sheboygan County is Lakeland University. This is our private university located just a few miles from Sheboygan Falls. And it is the only school in the Midwest that has a cooperative education program where students will actually work for a company all 4 years, hopefully the first 2 years, more or less in an entry-level role, whether that means on the plant floor, whether that means working the desk at a hospitality industry, and then spending the last 2 years actually being groomed in the field. Now, that means they're in hospitality management and basically become a manager at a local resort, or that means, you know, transitioning into the office to be finish out their accounting degree and actually become an accountant within a company. This has students have responded very well. I believe Lakeland had the largest freshman increase in terms of the number of students that entered that class than they've ever had in their entire history. So this really struck a chord with a lot of people who want practical education. On the entrepreneurship front, this is numbers that are a little bit old, but they've been fairly consistent. There's a network set up across the state, as a matter of fact, across the nation, called the Small Business Development Center. And what we've learned is that the number of capital raised through the SCEDC in Sheboygan County truly is astonishing. Sheboygan County is only 2% of the population, yet we're seeing 18% of the entrepreneurial activity, dwarfing the next county, and I think the next county, quite frankly, is Dane, not to give out too many secrets. But it is so exciting to see that we've been working very hard on supporting entrepreneurship. We are very proud of our legacy of family-owned companies, and we want to see the next generation of family-owned companies emerge and help accelerate this community to whole new levels. On the housing development side, so a couple of years ago, we took a look at the data, and what we found is that Sheboygan County, the total number of housing units, now this is both rental and owner-occupied, what we saw is that Sheboygan County simply wasn't keeping pace with housing growth coming out of the recession. As a matter of fact, when we run the back of the envelope math, what we found out is we needed about 1,400 units just to hit state averages. And as you saw from how fast our employment's growing and our workforce is growing, I think we need to hit that goal would be extremely modest. And so what we started to focus on early on is apartments. Now, countywide, we've done a great job, specifically in Falls. There are 2 projects. The first one is the Plank Trail Apartments being built by Dunoff out of Manitowoc. The units have started to open up, and they'll continue to open up throughout the year, but a total of 104. In addition, General Capital is purchasing the former middle school and going to be building 63 Section 42 senior apartments, which again I think are exactly what this community needs in terms of affordability. Countywide, we've probably seen about 800 units completed, probably another 300 or 400 units under construction, and another 300 or so units that have been proposed in various stages. So we feel very good on the apartment front. People keep asking me, how many more do we need? How many more before we're done? And I keep saying, this is not a static thing. If we're going to continue to grow, I think we'll need a couple hundred apartment units in perpetuity every year. But having said that, certainly I would start to become more picky in terms of the locations and the style that I was using, and really pay attention to what the studies are telling us. On the owner-occupied front, this area has done extremely well in terms of its single family and condo market, and the health and vitality of it coming out of the recession. So as you can see, what you're looking at as graph is the number of units listed on MLS coming out of the recession. That number has absolutely fallen. And even on the condo market on the lower line, again, a very similar trend. We are seeing fewer and fewer units on the market at any given time. Now, what that means is the days on the market has also gone down. We're just seeing churn as fast as something comes on the market, it is sold. And the median sale price of what's on the market has also increased. As a matter of fact, when we looked at this at last year's data, well, we found that Sheboygan County had the second fastest growing medium housing or medium home sale prices increased the second fastest in southeastern Wisconsin. So we know that this is a market that is tight and it holds opportunity. So what we did is we commissioned a study with the City of Sheboygan to take a look at condos, and what we found was an immediate need for at least 160 units. The total study said we needed over 300 in the next couple of years. And so we've been focusing on condos. We do believe we're going to see 2 or 3 condo projects. One is already broken ground. We expect 2 more this year, but even if all are built, that would be about 90 units, about half of our immediate need. So again, we still see some tremendous opportunity. And what you're looking at the bottom is our housing starts, our single family housing starts. And for the year 2015, the 2016 data looks a little bit better, but it still shows a very similar pattern. What we found is that take a fictitious community of 5,000 residents, and in the average community in Wisconsin, that community of 5,000 residents, we're building about 8 or 9 homes, which doesn't seem all that significant. Fortunately, in Sheboygan County, we've only been producing 3 to 4. So this is a real challenge. I do strongly feel that the data suggests that we are underbuilding this market. And again, opportunity for investment is there. Sheboygan Falls has probably been on the leading edge of encouraging single family development. And the best example I can find is with Hillcrest Builders. Now, many suburbs of larger communities are making it more difficult for development. They're requiring larger lot sizes, they're requiring wider roads, wider sidewalks, more trees, more landscaping, minimum developments on size, anything to raise the price point to keep, quote unquote, those people out of our community. Well, those people are average US citizens, and they're part of our community. And we recognize very strongly that if we're going to solve the workforce challenge, we can't do it by zoning ourselves out of income. And Sheboygan Falls has done 2 key things I think really shows their level of commitment. And they did them both for the same developer. And any developer would be lucky to find a community to do 1, let alone 2. The first thing that they did was create a vintage zoning classification. They're allowing lot sizes down to, I believe, 60 or 70 feet. They're allowing for smaller homes and essentially trying to get the density up in order to keep the price points modest. The second thing that they did was issue a special assessment for the developer to pay for roads, water, and sewer. Anyone that's in the development community knows that banking, infrastructure improvements is one of the most difficult things and really eats up a lot of capital. What the city of Sheboygan Falls did was agree to special assess the land and essentially build the water, roads, and sewer for the developer. Essentially, the municipality became the secondary basically became a bank for the developer. Now every time the developer pulls a building permit, they owe about $20,000 back to the city, and should, if anything, those payments not come in, they can obviously then tax the property to make sure that those bond payments are repaid. Again, an extremely proactive, aggressive move by the city of Sheboygan Falls, and the reason why they have had the newest subdivision break ground in their community. On the industrial development side, Sheboygan Falls is also a stranger here to being aggressive. Sheboygan Falls last year built the roads and infrastructure out in about 70 acres in their Vision Business Park. Since then, they've had 3 lots sold, and I think a very important item of note is that all 3 of these lots sold to local companies that were already in Sheboygan Falls. Here are companies that could have picked any community in the area, retained their workforce, gone to Sheboygan, Plymouth, anywhere else, but yet they chose to remain in Sheboygan Falls. And so I don't know of a stronger testament to investing in the community other than watching locals and what their actions are, and quite frankly, they're investing in their own community. An example of 2 of these projects, one is Metallic Tube, and the second one is Duratrail. Both of these are actually in operation and going. You can drive through the park and see them yourself. The third one, though I don't have any pictures, is currently still in the early planning phases, but that is Lakeside Pepsi. It has announced that I believe a 70 or 80,000 square foot distribution center will be built as well. So Sheboygan County has a lot of great things going for it. We have a lot of great communities that are doing some really proactive things across the board. Every community is a little unique. And so as I look at Sheboygan Falls, as we try to, these are a few things that we see where Sheboygan Falls does either better or a unique attribute that they have that other communities do not possess. So here are their advantages. The first thing is that their middle school is the newest school in the county. It's actually in its very first class, and developers, one thing that we when we talk with our communities and try to prep them for development and how do we get developers to come to our community, the answer is very clear. We need locals to invest in the community first. We cannot ask someone to put millions of dollars into a community that won't invest in it in itself. And so the Sheboygan Falls Middle School, I think, is one of the strongest testaments to what this community's future looks like. It is by far and away one of the most innovative educational spaces I have ever seen, and if you ever get a chance to tour it, please do. But this really helps set the gold standard of what a community looks like investing in itself. The next one is, although it's not in Sheboygan Falls, it is the closest municipality to the Sheboygan County Memorial Airport. The Sheboygan County Memorial Airport can handle 99,000-pound aircraft, and for the layman's terms, it's basically a Boeing 737. It is one of the busiest airports in the state of Wisconsin. I believe there's over 700 flight operations a day on average. It's much busier than one would think. It does have sites available for development, and Sheboygan Falls is uniquely positioned to take advantage of this transportation hub. As a matter of fact, it's so busy that the county is looking at working with some of the employers to bring U.S. Customs to this facility. That way international flights can fly right into Sheboygan County. The other thing that makes us unique, if I haven't mentioned it once already in the presentation, are partnerships. This county very strongly believes we get farther by working together. Now, do we have our differences? Sure. But at the end of the day, great things happen when we all come together and realize that our goals align. A great example of this is rebuilding the Plymouth-Tacoma rail line. Several communities, the county, several communities all chipped in financially. About 6 or 7 local companies chipped in financially, as well as the state of Wisconsin. And as far as I know, we are still the only community that has rebuilt a freight rail line after it was abandoned. This is just a great example of, again, and this took years upon years to accomplish. So kudos to all those involved, including the City of Sheboygan Falls. We are truly better when we work together. The other thing that makes Sheboygan Falls very unique is that it controls its own electric utility. Now, so does the City of Plymouth, but what that essentially means is because one person is the main contact for electricity, water, and sewer, they have a very good handle on where those utilities are, the cost of extending them, and as a result, they've created some really nice maps kind of outlining some of the key parcels that they think are most ready for development. It doesn't mean that they're for sale. It doesn't mean that they're listed. It's just that the community said these are the logical sites that if someone was looking at investing in our community, that should be considered just from an ease of development standpoint. The other thing that Sheboygan Falls has is a historical downtown. It is a true gem, and we'll see some pictures of there. But what also makes it fairly unique, they're not the only community with a historic district in their downtown in Sheboygan County, but they have a lot of walkable, developable sites to their downtown, which from a residential or commercial standpoint, I know are becoming higher and higher prized as the demographics are showing that more and more people are likely to want or live close to an urban center. So when I said historic downtown Sheboygan Falls, it truly has probably the gem of Sheboygan County. And this did not happen overnight, and truly it was not a foregone conclusion. So back well before my time, before I was here, probably in the 60s or 70s, I understood that Sheboygan Falls downtown was a little bit of an embarrassment for the community. And a generation ago, people banded together to save their downtown. And I want to show some before and after pictures just to realize that this is what this community is capable of when it just goes for it. And so this is one of the most iconic buildings downtown previously, and this is her today. A significant improvement. Here are a couple other pictures. This is one of the major buildings on Broadway. And again, when we take a look at what it looks like today, just again, a night and day difference on what it looks like when you restore these historical buildings. One of my favorites is this building looks like your standard 1960s low-cost energy siding, nothing special, nothing fancy. You know how they reduced the size of the windows, and today it is a beautiful building. I cannot say enough for what happens when you put a lot of investment in a very small area. You get an environment that people are very, very proud of. And I think this just shows how Sheboygan Falls is truly one of the very unique aspects of the community. So with that, I just want to thank you for your time. And obviously the City of Sheboygan Falls and Sheboygan County on a broader level are very interested in encouraging investment and development in our community, whether that be residential, industrial, or commercial. The bottom line is that through our partnerships, we have accomplished so much. We would like to form more of them. This is our community. This is where we live. We want what's best for all, and we hope that you share our vision and our passion for our area. And we very much strongly invite you to Sheboygan Falls, to Sheboygan, to tour the area and learn more about what we have to offer. Thank you.